You're selling a house and the appraisal comes in a lot higher than what you agreed to sell it for. Do you have a recourse? Can you get out of that? Stick around and find out. Hey, this is Billy, Associate Broker with RE/MAX Event Sale and Licensed Agent with RE/MAX at the Shore. So if you're buying a house and the appraisal comes in higher, are you obligated to pay more? No, you're not. Does that mean anything for you and your mortgage? Not necessarily. The mortgage is based on the lower of the sale price or appraised value. Sellers. What happens when a seller sells their house for $500, but the appraisal comes in at $560 or $570? What recourse do you have? So first things first, 90% of appraisals will come in at the sale price or a little higher. It's only with a 2% margin of error, let's say it's only about 12%, that causes serious ripples in an agreement that will come in too low. Once in a while, we'll get one that comes in too high. One of the things that's important to understand is that appraisal is the property of the lender, not the buyer, not the seller, not the agents, but the lender. The lender ordered the appraisal. The buyer pays for the appraisal, typically, unless it's seller assistance, and the seller pays for that, pays the buyer back at the settlement table. But normally the buyer pays for the appraisal. But it's the property of the bank. They don't have to give it to anyone. So if you're a seller in this position, let's look at a couple things. Why did the appraisal come in so much higher than what you thought it was in the first place? And what causes appraisals to come in either higher or lower? Understand, the appraiser does get a copy of the agreement of sale. If they're seller's assistants, they will normally deduct that from the appraisal unless it's reasonable and customary in that area to have that in an agreement of sale. Most appraisers will tell you that an appraisal is a snapshot in time. It's what's happening with the value of that house this day and this day only. Even though banks will use appraisals for 3 or 6 months, up to and including 3 or 6 months, it really is just a snapshot for that particular day. What affects it? Well, the value of the neighborhood. A school report could come out. A neighbor could park their car on the lawn. Those houses could be a lot different than what you thought they were. Crime, an uptick in foreclosures. All these things affect current value of an appraisal. So you're a seller and the house appraised for grossly over what you sold it for. How do you get out of it? What do you do? One thing you want to understand, I'm not an attorney, so the first thing you want to do is contact an attorney if you find yourself in this position, because you're getting into some pretty serious legal ground. If the seller decides to default, most buyers can and most likely will sue for specific performance. They make you perform on the contract. That could result in their damages. Are they staying in a hotel? Do they have their stuff on a moving truck? Etc., etc. So breach of contract is not advisable. The second way would be if there was some type of an exit clause or contingency. For example, the mortgage contingency. Does the buyer have their mortgage yet? Are they committed? Do they have their commitment? If they didn't get their commitment yet and it's due, check the agreement of sale, speak with an attorney, and see if you have grounds to terminate the agreement of sale if you choose to. That's one of the biggest ways that sellers can terminate the agreement of sale, because sometimes that mortgage contingency date's not met, or it may have language that your agreement of sale specifically says you do not have to accept. Again, some pretty serious legal stuff. Talk to an attorney about that. You're going to see some other videos that say, well, if they ask for stuff for the home inspection, if they ask for stuff for this or that, by the time you get the appraisal, you're probably already going to be done with the home inspection and done with most of that other stuff that the buyer has to do. Deposit money's probably in on time, things like that. So don't count on that as a way of getting out, because the appraisal is usually after all that. So you looked at everything and all else failed. You spoke with an attorney says you have to get a settlement, or you could potentially wind up with a lawsuit. So you're forced to go to settlement. Now you have what could be a pretty serious deficit. What do? Can you hold the agent responsible? It's going to be awfully hard to prove, but yeah, you can hold us responsible for negligence. There's certain things that agents get sued for. most of which fall under the guise of negligence. Most of the time, that involves the condition of the house. Something is defectively wrong with the house that wasn't disclosed properly. On the seller side, sometimes an agent didn't give all the paperwork to the seller, wasn't completely honest with the seller. 3 offers came in, they only told them about 2, little things like that. And sometimes it's not the agent's fault. Sometimes you agreed to a price based on the data that was available when you accepted the offer. Things changed in the neighborhood. The comparable sales changed. The neighborhood went up a little bit, but you're on the contract that you signed when they were here. You signed the contract, now they're here, and you're still here because you didn't go to settlement yet. Sometimes a longer settlement will cause that to happen. But one of the things that fall under negligence is providing inaccurate or misleading information. To have this recourse, the court will have to decide whether they did or did not exercise sufficient care and responsibility, fiduciary responsibility. Again, we're going to need to seek an attorney. Prevent this from happening to you in the first place, I do have other videos that explain how to properly price a house and things like that. I'm not going to bore you with that here. Again, I already bored you in that other video. So check out some of my other videos if you have questions, and always feel free to reach out. Hey, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and please subscribe.